Hi, I'm Katharine from All the Right Colors, and if you want to help your child write a really great story, here are some tips of how to do it. I've worked with students from all different learning abilities, and they've been able to not just write a really great book, but publish it on Amazon, including all of these students behind me. So the strategies I'm going to share with you are going to help you come up with a really great story with your child, how to start that book, and then how to write it really well where you enjoy the process. I have tried a lot of strategy, things that I've learned as a teacher, and then I've just learned from students what works, what doesn't work. So I'm going to give you those strategies today. How do you come up with a great story? Well, instead of the 3 primary colors, I like to call it the 3 primary parts you need to come up with a great story. The first thing kids are going to come up with is the people or the characters. They're going to need to come up with a character they're really excited about, and that character needs to have a lot of personality. They need to have strengths, they need to have weaknesses, and they need to be something that can be relatable or that they might be familiar with. So once they come up with a really great character or 2 characters, then the most important thing is we gotta have a problem. Something bad or some conflict has to happen. So it needs to have an overarching problem. For example, Joe gets lost. The little crab gets lost. And then after that, we need to come up with a plot or a story map. So in school, we teach students that we wanna have a story arc. I've tried this with kids and I finally realized it doesn't work. You know what they actually need? A story map. And so what I have the students do is we draw a road, and it has a happy side and a sad side. And we might start with really happy or really unhappy or really angry or really worried, but the story needs to go up and down all the way to the end, and maybe a resolution at the end is very happy, which is why we have a star at the end. This is a story map of a student that I worked with, and it was so fun to watch her really develop it. And now when she writes that story, she can go back and follow this, and we know that there's an ending involved. It might change as she goes, but at least there's a map now to go with. Once a child has come up with a really great story with these 3 parts, it's time to start. How do you start writing? You have that piece of paper or you have that computer up and you're like, where do I begin? Well, this can get really complicated. I simplify it down to 2 ways for students. So I say either you start with dialogue, which means somebody says something like, Mom, Dad, where are you? The little crab says. Or you start with a narrator. A crab wakes up in his home with his family. So you can start one way or the other. A lot of students I've noticed will either choose one of these ways. This one is the most popular one, starting with a narrator describing the setting. Once you started it, now it's time to really write that story, right? But you still need to go in and coach your child or your student to help them really make that story robust. Of course, they have the story map, right? Where they're going off and checking off each part of their story journey. But during it, here are some things to focus on. First, really help them remember that this has to sound like their voice. They are the author, they are the person who is writing it, so it has to sound like them. It doesn't sound like anybody else. And then from them, we want to hear what's going on in the story, which means add dialogue. From them, we want to know what the setting is like, and we want to be able to see, smell, be able to visualize the place. So we want to have setting and action. And from them, we want them to tell us, what does the character feel like? We want to be able to feel what that character is feeling and thinking. So we want to add internal thoughts. This is what we call add more details. Oh my gosh, I used to say this all the time to students, add more details. And the kids would be like, I don't know what you're talking about. This is actually a much better way to explain it. Instead of saying add more details, maybe you say, you know what, this part needs dialogue. Or you know what, can you add some action to this? Or can you add some internal thinking or feelings about the character? Once you can do this, then that story is going to really develop. You've got the story map. That's it. So there you go. This is how you come up with a story, how you start a story, and how you write a really great story. If you like what you hear, then subscribe to this channel. I will continue sharing tips of things that work for my students and my authors. And you can also follow me on Instagram and Facebook for ideas and tips. Bye.